It's October 30, 2025. If you've ever looked at European politics and noticed how many parties have the word Christian in their names, you might wonder what's going on. There are Christian Democrats, Christian Socialists, Christian People's Parties, and more. It sounds like the churches decided to start their own political leagues, but really it has more to do with history, values, and how faith shaped Europe after some of its darkest times. After World War II, Europe was in ruins. Fascism had collapsed, communism was spreading, and people were desperate for a moral rebuilding. They wanted democracy, but they also wanted it to stand for something. Out of that moment came Christian democracy. It was not about creating a religious state, it was about grounding democracy in moral values that came from Christian teaching: human dignity, family, community, and care for the poor. The roots went back even further. In the late 1800s, both Catholic and Protestant thinkers were asking how faith could respond to the growing gap between rich and poor during the Industrial Revolution. They wanted to find a path between heartless capitalism and violent socialism. Papal writings like Rerum Novarum and Quadragesimo Anno called for fair wages, the right to organize, and the moral duty of employers. Protestant reformers were saying similar things about responsibility, stewardship, and fairness. After the war, these ideas turned into political movements. In Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Austria, new parties were formed to rebuild their countries with a moral foundation. They supported democracy, welfare programs, and cooperation between workers and business owners. The best known are the Christian Democratic Union in Germany and Democrazia Cristiana in Italy. These parties believed that democracy needed a moral compass and that freedom must be linked to community. Each country shaped its version differently. In Germany, the CDU brought Catholics and Protestants together. In Italy, the DC was closely tied to the Catholic Church. In the Netherlands and Belgium, separate Catholic and Protestant parties later emerged into broader Christian democratic ones. By the 1970s, they've joined forces across the continent to form the European People's Party, which became the largest center-right group in the European Parliament. Today, most Christian democratic parties are less religious in tone. They still carry that heritage of social concern and moral stability. When Europeans vote for them, they are often voting for moderation, continuity, and a belief that society should still reflect some of its spiritual roots. On the other side of the political spectrum, there is another family of movements known as Christian Socialists. They share the same starting point in faith, but they read the message of Jesus through a different lens. Christian Socialists see the gospel as a call to justice and equality. They remember Jesus standing with the poor and challenging the rich. They look to the early church in the book of Acts, where believers shared everything in common as a model for society. In the 1800s, people like F.D. Morris and Charles Kingsley in Britain created the first Christian socialist movement. Across Europe, priests, ministers, and lay people organized cooperatives and pushed for workers' rights. They believed socialism could be an expression of Christian love and not an enemy of the faith. The difference between Christian Democrats and Christian Socialists is simple. Christian Democrats wanted to fix capitalism and make it more humane. Christian Socialists wanted to change it altogether. One side focused on balance and harmony, the other focused on justice and transformation. During the 1900s, Christian socialism inspired worker priests in France, theologians like Paul Tillich in Germany, and later in Latin America, the rise of liberation theology. These were movements of people who believed God stands with the poor and that faith must act for justice. Many church leaders were nervous about them, afraid they were too close to communism. As socialist parties became more secular, Christian socialist movements lost influence, but their ideas live on in progressive Christian groups and in parts of the environmental and social justice movements. So when you see the word Christian in a European party name, it does not always mean the party is religious. It is more like a reminder of where that party's moral roots began. Some grew out of Catholic teachings, others came from Protestant reform. All share a belief that politics should not be empty of moral vision. That is the deal with all those Christian parties. They are not trying to prove who is more holy. They are the living reminders of Europe's long effort to balance faith with democracy, justice with freedom, and moral conviction with the realities of modern life.